Hey guys, it's Alex and welcome to my first speed build. Been wanting to start a YouTube channel for a while now, so this is my first go. Thanks for joining me. As far as this particular Sims 4 build goes, I really like building and getting creative in The Sims 4, so I am used to using a lot of what the game has to offer. Now I do have most of the expansion packs, game packs, stuff packs, that sort of thing. So I wanted to make this a little bit more of a challenge for myself and do it base game only. You'll definitely notice once we get more into the furnishing of everything that I struggle with that a little bit. As far as the general layout of this house though, I knew I wanted to keep it something traditional. I've got it set in one of the Willow Creek lots. So I wanted to figure something out there, a nice little, not necessarily a starter home, but a nice family home for, you know, middle class. Nothing too crazy going on in here, but definitely a nice place to live. And then I am here messing around with the roofing for a little bit. It really drives me crazy when roofing isn't all matched and tied together. So you'll see me kind of fuss with that a little bit from time to time, but we've got it pretty much done from here on out. Now, I've also started to play a little bit with having those roofs come out further. Ordinarily, I would keep them pretty in line with the dimensions of the walls or the floor space, but I wanted to give it a little bit of overhang, especially, you know, if you are playing with seasons. Give you a little bit of time in front of your front door so you're not drenched as you're walking in. I feel like that's a pretty common real life architectural choice. And then I also, in keeping it traditional, wanted to do kind of this brick and siding combo. I did have some problems picking out the wallpaper for the outside of the build. I did cut a little bit of that out because I kind of went back and forth for a while. Something that I've noticed in using predominantly not base game items is, one, the textures are a lot nicer with the newer stuff, but also you'll notice how the brick on the wall height, regardless of how high I made the walls, is always just in the middle. I found that a little weird that the brick was so high up. I had some problems with the windows because I didn't want the windows to be half in brick, half in siding. That just didn't really make sense to me. So you'll definitely see some heavy use of the move objects tool going on in the build here, as well as a little bit later on in the furnishing. But yeah, getting nice and cozy. Let's see, as we're chatting, as I fiddle with the outside of this build and go back and forth with some windows, I guess a little bit about me, since this is my first video. I am, at the moment, 27 years old. I know, exciting times to be playing The Sims 4. And this is really just a creative outlet for me. I do also deeply enjoy a lot of other different style of gaming. I'm really into kind of heavier RPGs, big fan of like BioWare, Bethesda games, Obsidian, that sort of stuff. Currently, other than working on stuff like this in The Sims, have just started playing The Witcher 2. But right now, sort of Let's Plays of a game of that size isn't really on my to-do list. Especially because, you know, I might be prone to rage quitting at times, and, you know, that can't be that fun to watch. But back to the build right here, you'll see me messing a bit with the tiles. This is something else I've noticed with the base game items. A lot of them are kind of that more traditional, like very neutral style, which did end up making me not necessarily date the house, but it's not quite as modern as I tend to build, and that's definitely obvious in the bathrooms. I usually go with a lot more modern tiling. I use a lot of spa day in my bathroom and kitchen building. But I do really like these cabinets, even though they did come with the base game. I still use them a lot. They're very just kind of nice and plain, so that's really nice. I do really like kitchen clutter, and you'll see that a lot more as we go. And I do end up eventually changing the color of the kitchen countertops. I go with more of a darker brown just to kind of modernize it, bring a little bit more color into the space. I am about to change the wall colors in here as I go. I kind of just like to start with something super neutral, and that way I can kind of go from there, decide, you know, aesthetically how I'd like to move things around, based a little on my own taste, but also perhaps the taste of the Sims that may be here. I do admit, though I did end up moving a Sim in here for kind of like a house tour at the end of the video, I definitely leaned a little heavier into my style as we go. Not so much in what ends up being our cozy little living room or this first floor bathroom, but definitely once we move up to furnish the upstairs and when we start furnishing the office, is a lot more of kind of my personal style. But I, you know, figured for a first speed build video with y'all, I would at least, you know, throw some of my own personal flair in there. I do finally remember here to add a little back porch so you can actually get out of that sliding door in the back. I do really appreciate that with this game, EA has gone in and added things like those sliding doors and some of the decorative items that you'll see me use here, and I'm sure in other builds as well, that did not originally come with the base game, but they've added through patches. That being said, I'm sure that if any of you are base game only, you appreciate the addition of some clothing options that they've added since they've done the redesign of all of the marketing material. They've added some clothing that were originally part of expansion packs and have since removed them from the expansion packs and added them to the base game. That I'm not a huge fan of. I definitely, although I appreciate adding more things for those people that do just have the base game, I think it's a little, I don't know, insulting seems like a strong word, but it's a little skeezy to take something that you've had people pay frankly too much money for, and then kind of take that away from them and give it away for free. Especially when there's so many other things that they could add. They could add just brand new clothing options, which everyone would appreciate, instead of not only taking this thing and giving it away for free when it was originally included with the paid pack, but also when they did that, they removed the ability to find those items with the pack that they originally came with. Something that is an item that I actually use a lot in my own gameplay is one of the jackets that came with Get Famous that they have since re-released for base game only through a patch. It is no longer tagged as Get Famous in the game at all, even if you did buy it with that expansion. So if I'm looking specifically for it, I really just have to sift through all of my jacket options and create a sim, instead of, you know, being able to just sort by that pack, which is something that I use a lot. Now, with this little fitzing around with this fishbowl, you'll start to see what I do add a bit here in the living room with that extended picture window, as well as with some kitchen clutter that I add later on. Through the Move Objects cheat, I love to kind of lift items and make it look as if they're set on a surface that the game itself doesn't really let us get to. Now, with items like that, you do have to be a little bit careful of what they are. If it is a usable item, that creates a problem with the Sims. They're not actually able to use it, but with decorative items, it doesn't cause any problem at all. And you are able to do things like put, well, I suppose more float object on top of like the refrigerator or the microwave, and that does not create any sort of movement issues with the Sims while you're playing. I should probably point out to you all that I do have I have several mods installed, but as far as this build goes, the only mod installed that really affects anything is how I have that TV up on the buffet table over there. For me, that just is a necessary mod. I will link it in the description below if I can backtrack and find one for you. But I'm sure I just picked that up over at probably Sims, well, maybe not Sims Resource. I'll have to find it for everybody. But I don't know, regular gameplay, I feel like the TVs are just really meant to be on those tables. I don't see a whole lot of use for them otherwise, especially since Sims no longer bring in newspapers or mail like they did in The Sims 2 and 3 and just put them down. So I feel like it makes those items a lot more useful to be able to have the TVs. And then it's actually a cheaper TV that I have just enlarged with some basic keyboard commands that are available in every version of the game. But yeah, so in this back room, which ends up becoming an office, I also add a little shoe rack, a little coat rack, just to make it more of a little bit of a mudroom to the backyard. That way your Sims can kind of go in and out and kind of leave all their stuff back there. I considered adding something similar like that to that little entryway I have by the front door, but it just didn't really work spatially. I wanted to keep it a bit more of a formal space because I just didn't want the Sims entering directly in to that main living and dining space. I did want it to seem as if this house is a little bit more of a modern renovation of a little bit of an older home, and I just didn't want it to be too open concept up there at the front. Now, I said I was one for clutter. That last journal that I set down is, again, one of those objects that were just added into a patch, and I put it in every build I do now. I actually have 2 of them in this build, as we'll see as we start to furnish the upstairs. The second bedroom is going to end up with one of those as well. And then this house I have set up here as kind of a family house. It's definitely, you know, you've got the office downstairs, kitchen, dining, the 2 bathrooms, and then I ended up turning, we've got a master bedroom upstairs, but then also a secondary bedroom. And with that second bedroom, I didn't really age it in a specific way. So you can use it, whether it's a child sim that's maybe just has a little bit more refined tastes, or a teenager or a young adult that simply hasn't moved out from their parents' house yet. It kind of works for all of those. There is a desk where you can do homework up there, as well as eventually a backpack gets thrown up there. But so that you know, this house can really work for different family setups, different living styles. I do also use a copious amount of plants. I've actually started doing that relatively recently. I don't know, I just think it really brightens things up. It was a little bit limiting with the base game only items as far as how many different kinds of plants that I could use. So there are definitely some repeats going on, but I tried to not overuse the same plant too many times to at least keep it a little diverse. I know in my own life, would have a couple flower pots that are the same or different colors of the same style, but you know, I assume most of us aren't just buying the same plant several times to decorate our houses with. So up here, we've moved into the master bedroom, and this I definitely gave a more masculine style, though we do add some more color here in a little bit. I just really appreciate that kind of traditionally more masculine, but the more antique aesthetic, as you saw with those architectural drawings that I did above the couch in the living room area. I've also added these kind of drawings with the clock and some of the other items up here. Just it adds a little bit of zhuzh, I think, but also keeps it kind of neutral without adding unrealistic elements. I do like very realistic Sims gameplay, so some of the more fantastical art pieces I don't generally use outside of public lots or more wealthier builds. I do tend to build more lower to middle class kind of homes when I do build. In part because that's just what I personally know and I'm comfortable with, but also just because I think it's a lot more fun for your Sims when they can't quite afford it all. This house I do definitely recommend using the free real estate cheat on if you do move it into your own game, just so that you don't have to lose any of the clutter items that are added. And then there aren't a whole lot of gameplay items in this house, so your Sims can definitely still save up. They can expand outside, maybe do a pool, a hot tub, some outdoor activities, maybe increase the quality of some of the items, especially down in the living room. There's a lot of room to grow there. So I definitely left some wiggle room while still trying to achieve a certain aesthetic in the house, so that in real gameplay there is somewhere for you to go, and for me to go if I end up using this house in my own day-to-day gameplay. Now this upstairs bathroom, I didn't want to make identical to the first floor bathroom, so outside of doing a bathtub, I also made it a very different color scheme, just that black and white, a very classic, but also a bit more modern. So perhaps they, have maybe updated this upstairs bathroom a little bit more than the downstairs. Yeah, so I don't know about you all. I didn't grow up with any bathrooms that had windows in them. All of my bathrooms were kind of completely sealed off. But now that I'm older, I've lived several different places, I love having a window in my bathroom. Generally in The Sims, if I add them, I'll either add really tiny ceiling windows or the ones that I've added here, so that they're smaller. You don't have to worry too much about anybody peeping in on you. But it adds some light. Theoretically, you can open those, kind of add some more ventilation, kind of cool things down after you've taken a nice steamy bath or shower. And I just think it adds a little bit more to it, a little bit more texture in the walls, that kind of stuff. I did end up really liking this bedroom. I decided to go with kind of this navy wall color, but keep it light with all the furniture and do kind of these lighter sage green colors, which is just a color combination that I like a lot. I feel like it's a little too reserved for me, perhaps in my day-to-day in real life, but I do like it a lot in The Sims. It just is very a nice soft color for a bedroom, kind of calm and relaxing. Nice dark walls keep you nice and cuddly, I really wanted to do something with those flowers. I don't remember if I ended up leaving them out there or not, but there's kind of this awkward space in that hallway up on the second floor that I do eventually figure out, but it definitely takes some back and forth up there. But yeah, we finally get things figured out. I do also really enjoy adding curtains. It's, I never used to play with curtains or really build with them much, but I have started using them relatively recently in my gameplay, and they really add a lot. You don't have to add as many wall decorations necessarily once you throw those curtains up there, because they do add so much color to the walls themselves, and of course they make the gameplay a little bit realistic as well. I don't really like any of the blinds that we have in the game, even when you do include those other expansion packs, so I think curtains are a great way to go. And I actually didn't realize the chair that I use in the master bedroom and that couch that I put outside on the porch, I did not realize they were base game items. So definitely someone let me know down in the comments if you know if they were added in a patch at some point, or if they're conversions like that jacket I was talking about earlier that came from an expansion and are now included as base game items. They definitely remind me something more that would have come with jungle adventure or city living. So at this point of the video, I wanted to kind of split off and do a part 2 for the speed build so that I could do the exterior landscaping and finishing up and house tour screenshots, all that, which you are about to see, as a secondary kind of video. So I would have 2 videos, but also you wouldn't have to sit through a half-hour video if you did not want to, but I can't figure out how to do that. So we'll definitely have to learn some more about my editing software for next time. Is that part where I am messing around a lot with this upper hallway. I definitely kind of wanted to keep it that more kind of masculine theme that you see in the master bedroom and a little bit in the office. And not super outdated, which is why I have that kind of, you know, deep magenta, more modern couch up there. I wanted to still make it seem like a younger family or couple or sim lived here, but I did want to give it a more antique aesthetic. Now, I definitely don't add any of those wallflowers upstairs. I did suddenly remember at a certain point in this build that, you know, wall clocks exist in this game. I don't think I ever use them really. Occasionally I'll use the very like 60s inspired one that came with Get Famous. I do like to do a lot of like 70s aesthetic builds, and perhaps I'll upload one of those for y'all at some point. But I found these clocks and I ended up using a couple, both upstairs and downstairs. But mostly, you know, just lots of plants, lots of clutter. At this point, we're definitely moving into the exterior of the house. I really like landscaping in The Sims. However, I cannot do it without that move object sheet. Plants overlap. They don't sit in little squares. I just don't do it. And then I also really like to add in different terrain shaders, especially with like the dirt or that like brown and green version. I feel like it adds more dimension to the house itself as far as adding it along the foundation of the houses, but I also like to add it under objects like mailboxes, trees, plants, that sort of thing, just to show that, you know, they've been there. Yeah, I think it just adds a lot more detail. And yeah, it does take a little bit of time. There's a lot of back and forth, especially if I get something a little bit too dark, especially when I'm doing something like this where I'm adding an edge terrain next to another terrain. It's a little bit of a delicate balance in there. And then I do also, at some point, I don't believe I actually filmed it, I add kind of another pebble grass path from that bird fountain in the front over to the side. I do add an outdoor trash can so that your Sims can empty their trash and actually take it outside. And that way it gives it the illusion that your Sims are able to then drag it up to the street to get picked up without having to just drag it through the grass, because that's not really realistic, especially once you do add seasons, we have snow and all that sort of stuff. Ah, yes, and then our sun, just to cap it off. In here, I am just adding some more clutter to the kitchen. This is where you're gonna see me go back in and change around some colors, especially in that kitchen. I really just decided that this room was a little too Spartan and wanted to go back in and just kind of like increase the quality. I felt I did a really good job furnishing the upstairs, but had not quite nailed it down here. This is where you're gonna see one of those plaques that I really enjoyed. I really wanted to use that one that kind of pulled in with the wall color. I don't end up going with that clock. It was just a little bit too modern for the rest of the house. So I end up throwing in kind of the more metal looking one that we do use upstairs as well, but I did change the color. Pop that above the TV, and then I do add some cabinetry and also some shelving. I enjoy doing shelving in my builds as if they're windowsills. That's something I really like, but that didn't really work with the window treatments that I've got going on in this room. I did want to keep those just to kind of keep some more detail going on. So I added them just below the cabinets. I matched them to those bottom cabinets. And then this is where you'll see some more heavy use of those floating move objects tools here, just to add some clutter up on those shelves. At this time, would like to apologize for any of you that may have already downloaded or would like to download this bill. I had to move that bottom cabinet with the microwave out so that I could add all of these objects. Otherwise, they would just kind of sticky on the inside of the microwave so that they were sitting on the cabinet. And I definitely forgot to put that away. So that is when you first download this house, that cabinet does live next to the fridge, and you know, it's currently just hanging out in the middle of the room, which is not the most ideal spot for a microwave. So we'll definitely have to pop that guy back over. I apologize for that. You also, in your gameplay, if you have any issues with your Sims getting uncomfortable because of their surroundings, definitely check those shelves. Make sure they haven't like thrown any plates down there or behind the TV, because Sims will occasionally do stuff like that. I've also had them, even if I don't have the move object sheet on, have had them eat underneath a computer, that sort of thing. So there are definitely some mapping issues going on. So watch out for those in this space, because there are a lot of flat surfaces, and I did use that move object sheet a lot. Now I consider putting that little batfish guy in here somewhere. I liked him in theory, but it definitely didn't really work with the Sims that I kind of envision living in here. I don't think that they would have had a dead mounted fish on the wall. And this is about it with these you know, spacey elements to kind of, you know, class up that corner of the office. And we are about to go into our house tour. This just about wraps us up here. So thank you guys for watching my very first speed build. You can find this house on the gallery. It is Winsome Willow is the name of the lot. And then my gallery ID I will have listed down below is La Renard Blanche. So definitely check the spelling down there. But subscribe to keep up with what I'm doing. Thanks, guys. And this is about it. Thank you guys for joining me for my first speed build. I hope y'all enjoyed it.